have a focus on your own personal self-awareness and ensure you know your strengths, and ensure that you are open to being curious, like staying curious, to asking questions specifically on things you do not know an in-depth amount of information on, whether that be the technology build or directly to the customer base. I think having your self-awareness, taking that step back on that is super helpful. I think we talked about delegation and letting go. I definitely believe it is not a case of just getting to level whatever in the building and then letting go and delegating. It's about getting better people in certain roles, nurturing them on what your vision is and the mission and what you have found out on your way, and then letting them enhance on that and grow on that.
Welcome to episode 148. In every coaching journey, I kick things off by defining what I call key success indicators or key SIs with my clients. It's our roadmap to get real results. One common key SI: crafting a killer business strategy and an action plan for execution. I'm not surprised. Entrepreneurs often get caught up in the day-to-day tasks, leaving little room for big picture thinking. Ben Camara, ex-soccer pro turned London entrepreneur, gets it. He knows strategic thinking is your venture's unshakable foundation. It guides smart decisions, savvy resource use, and long-term plans. Thinking strategy is a tactic I swear by, and it's one of the gems in my free ebook, 8 Tactics to Thrive as an Entrepreneur. You can find this Entrepreneur's Guide to Success on my website for free. Now let's dive into my chat with Ben. Ready for a dose of strategic wisdom? Well then, keep listening. Hey Ben, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Really excited to be here.
Good. So are you ready to tackle your bottlenecks?
As ready as I'll ever be. Absolutely.
And so, well, this is where I want to start this conversation today. I ask you, like I ask all my guests, to fill in the bottleneck index. Your score was quite okay, 40%.
Mm-hmm.
So the higher the score, the worse you are, or the stronger the bottleneck, I would say. But you scored the least on strategic thinking and letting go. Do you agree with the score?
I think the letting go for sure. I mean, because obviously delegation was part of, or hugely insightful, by the way. Thank you for sharing it. The strategic thinking, yeah. I mean, things move so fast for especially a startup of our age, and we're learning so much all the time. But I think, yeah. I mean, I did the report, and we then went into some workshopping. So it certainly was an insight. Let's put it that way.
Was it? Is it why you're saying it's usually insightful?
Definitely, yeah, hugely helpful. I think it's always good. I'm a massive believer in taking a step back and having some awareness continuously, especially as you grow your business. So all of these insightful reports, etc., are hugely helpful to then take a step back and have a look.
What do you think, if you had taken this bottleneck index like 5 years ago, what do you think it would have shown you?
5 years ago, I was in my previous business. We had established quite a lot. We had a full team management and sort of bigger organizational structure. Let's call it that way. I think it probably would have brought up potentially strategic thinking again. I mean, we were at a stage 5 years ago where things were sort of chugging along. We were not on any sort of aggressive path. So yeah, it potentially could have brought that up. I think letting go is something that all sort of leadership teams need to learn, the fine balance of that. So it's probably got similarities.
Yeah, since I've done I've asked my guests to complete the bottleneck index. Every time we talk about delegation and letting go. And this is the biggest issue
Yeah,
apparently among entrepreneurs.
yeah.
It is, but it's just so difficult to let go, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think it goes in phases though. I think it
Yeah,
isn't a case of just moving up to some sort of layer, and then suddenly you're just letting go. I think, plates are spinning. I think you move in and out of that mental headspace of letting go, until your business certainly is a sustainable business, and that then you can really kind of utilize that letting go and helping the teams to perform better and continue growing.
yeah. But since it's such an important topic, but everybody else, previous guests have addressed it already. Let's not talk too much about it. This
Yeah,
time, let's talk more about strategic thinking.
yeah.
What do you think you need to do better when it comes to strategic thinking?
I think the main thing for myself and my current situation as the founder of KLIQ is we are going through a lot of different things in parallel,
Right.
and learning along the way as well from continuous feedback. So I think, we did previously have um, a 6 week calendar repeat of strategic thinking of where are we at. I think we've brought that into a much narrower window so that we
Mm,
can really take that step back on what are the findings we've found from this last 3 weeks is where we're at, and how has that changed the out the outcome, um, both long term and also in the near term. And so I think that's one thing that I'm trying to focus on.
why is it important to do that? And here I want you to address it, like, and tell other entrepreneurs why strategic thinking is so important.
Well, the strategic thinking is a chance, or the workshopping around that and actually deep diving is really the point of where you've had your train of thought, you've had your strategic thinking previously, and you are then starting to execute on the different divisions within your business. But
Mm,
obviously, you will have that then feedback coming in, which may differ slightly. It may differ massively from your strategic thinking from the beginning, the hypothesis that you had at the beginning. And so I think it's hugely important to step back and just take a quick, 60,000 feet look down at what are you trying to achieve, and are you moving in the right direction? We always talk here at KLIQ about, are we moving the needle in the right direction with what we are doing? And so having that strategic thinking will be the baseline of what you go out and execute on.
absolutely. I mean, especially since in a company, the funders are the only ones who have these 360 views. Everybody else only have a part of that view. But what do you want to tech click? What's the big dream for it?
The big dream for us is, so we are a business infrastructure tool for
Mm,
creators, so content creators. So those creators that they themselves are transitioning from just content creation to actually entrepreneurialism, so building their business. We want to be that layer, that technology infrastructure that they can build their business on top of, with their own branding and their own customer base and community. So what we actually do is offer the whole solution. So the business back end, also the front end, and you can choose from having a mobile app, which is fully branded in your own branding and the feature sets that serve your community, or a web application. But just empowering them to transition from just creating content to actually
mm,
building a thriving business. So we want to continue doing that. We've done that for the last 12 months within the fitness space, which was my previous background.
yeah.
But we're looking to now transition into different categories of creators. So food creators, such as cooks and chefs, bottleneck coaches that are looking to
There's only one. It's me.
make their own. But yeah, I think it's a hugely exciting time within the content creator economy space, and we really want to be, creator first. And what we mean by that is, empowering them to build their brand, not just building what we're building here at KLIQ.
Yeah, but it's so. I'm gonna take my own experience. It's
Mm.
so difficult to build content because there's so much content out there, and that if you want to make an impact, you have to be very creative. You have to speak to the right audience, but it's just so difficult to do. Do you have any uh, free tips?
Absolutely. I mean, the main thing I think is that we need to take a step back and look at what you are in the core of being also this creator of content. You are an
Mm,
entrepreneur, you are a business owner, and you're serving your community with educational content that they can take then and progress in their lives. And what's happening generally is that the big tech platforms, the YouTubes, the Instagrams, etc., are not the platforms to build your business on, but they are the platform to build your audience on. And that's a very big difference. And so the way that we always approach it is, of course, you're going to do your marketing and your content creation where the audience is, but a focus should also be on how your customers and your direct community can really engage with the true cherry on the top value that you're bringing them. And that will generally be, as with any business, whether you have a coffee shop or a hair salon, within your own space where you control those boundaries.
mm.
And so we very much don't just focus on that layer of like, let's make your content jazzier or more niche, but let's make it so that that content, which is aligned to your community, is easily accessible then on your own platform as well. It doesn't mean you're leaving the social media platforms. It means that you are offering a solution for them to easily access more than what you've given them on the YouTube or whatever that might be.
Yeah, I understand, but still,
Yeah,
still, it is a challenge,
it is a
uh,
challenge.
because I have to find ways to speak to my audience in ways that they understand, right? In ways that it makes sense to them. You know, the importance of storytelling and all of that. So how do you get there with your clients without giving too much, of course?
Yeah, I think, Lauren, it goes back to the basics of business that's been around for thousands of years,
Yeah.
right? You start. What social media has done is has made the conception that I can suddenly have 100,000 customers like this, at a click of a finger. When in reality, no,
Yeah.
likes and views do not translate to dollars. Okay,
True.
and whether I am creating the very best pastry cafe and I'm starting small and I have 5 customers and I serve them well and it becomes 10, and it becomes 15, I focus on the quality of the product. And in this case, with creators, it's the content that's going out. Your customer base will grow if they know where they can find more of it and you are marketing to them in the correct way. And so, again, I go back to, of course, you need the very best quality content. That's the same across any business, the best quality product. However, what is happening in the creator economy is that there's no easy way for these customers, community, whatever you want to call them, to really access the added value of what you're doing. With podcasters, for example, there's a fragmentation of going to Acast or going to Anchor and uploading, and then it's in
Mm.
Spotify, etc. There's no real way of them going to where you are direct and getting the core value. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve with KLIQ and our infrastructure.
I understand. Well, best of luck. Best of luck with that. Um,
Thank you.
how did you end up an entrepreneur? Because you used to be like a professional football player or soccer player, depending on where you are in the world. How did you
Yeah,
end up an entrepreneur?
really good question. So I grew up with already seeing that my dad is an entrepreneur. So my
Mm,
dad is West African from Guinea, and he's always run his own businesses. I think from an early age that just gave me the context of not just having I wake up in the morning, I go to a 9 to 5. And then obviously I went into the world of professional sports. So it was not a structured 9 to 5 environment. It was very, very different. And so when I came to the end of playing, although even during while I was playing, I was already reading, books from say Richard Branson, or seeing the other opportunities that you can have to be just successful in life, right?
Mm.
Um, and so there's a few things. Fear of potentially not knowing what to do after football.
Yeah.
I had not had a job interview stroke written a CV or a resume prior to being 24 years old. So already I
Mm.
was kind of, oh, what do I do? And I was hugely just interested in business, just the context of business and creating something of value quite early on. And so I think back to, school days, being a young kid going around where we used to live in this state and washing cars for money, or doing all these sorts of things. Um, I think it was just instilled by my parents as well, just of working, and the opportunity that you can create something yourself to make um, revenue, income, let's
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah. I just listened to a podcast where the guest was talking about, why we should teach entrepreneurship principles to kids.
Hmm.
I think you just mentioned some of them, the
Yeah,
importance of making revenue.
yeah.
That how did that what did you learn as a kid from looking at your father?
What I noticed from not just my father, but just in general, was the key, I think, is problem solving.
Mm,
There is a problem that you're trying to create some income, right?
yeah.
And if you have been into jobs and it's 9 to 5, then obviously that is the experience that you have had, and you will repeat that experience, repeat that behavior. Because I hadn't had that, I had just had, sport, or tried to make pocket money before that, and seen my dad changing his businesses from different even industries. That really opened the eyes of oh wow, you're now currently doing this versus what you were doing then. How is that even possible? Well, it is possible. You just obviously need to be able to go and understand that industry and build in that industry for the customer base. So I totally agree with teaching, younger generations, definitely the importance of being able to solve problems. At the core of it can help with entrepreneurial thinking, I think.
Yeah, rather than spending your time on your mobile phone. I should just
Yeah.
say this. That is said. To continue about your entrepreneurship journey, in 2008, you created No1 Fitness.
Hmm.
And I want to talk about it because I believe, from your point of view, it was quite a ride. So
Hmm.
you bootstrapped it. Then you went to a point where you were overseeing and more than 120,000, I think, one-to-one sessions. You
We've
scaled
done
to,
Jared, yeah.
yeah, you scaled to multiple locations. I
Hmm.
think annual recurring revenue 1.5 million pounds, I think, something like that.
Yeah,
In
just over actually, throughout the
over,
group. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. And after 11 years of doing that business, which is not small, right? You had to give it away, you told me, to a businessman because of COVID. Man, I don't want to imagine how you were feeling at that moment. Must have been so tough.
Yes, I mean, to give you context, we had ran it for, like you said, over 11 years. I'd ran it throughout my whole 20s, from
Mm.
literally, I left playing professional football, and less than 18 months later, I had my own bricks and mortar business that I'd signed a 10-year lease on, which again, my parents thought I was crazy about. But it was the best life lesson ever, that 10 years, the best MBA I'll probably ever do. But yeah, the end of COVID. But we do need to go back a couple of years. We had
Mm.
been looking at exiting the business. We'd been coming up to our 10-year anniversary, and we'd felt that we had built it was a sustainable business. There was a team there. I think we had, just under 40 staff. And so it was self-sustainable. We actually had a broker looking at selling it. In the end, due to COVID, yeah, of course, one of the sites wasn't open and didn't open again, actually. By the time that we had done let's call it the deal,
Yeah.
It had been shut for 14 months, but in the UK, you were still expected to pay rent. And so you can imagine that's just absolutely not sustainable for a
Of
small and
course.
medium-sized business. So, yeah, do you know what? It was strange feeling. Of course, suddenly you've got this, I don't want to use the word child, but something you've grown to be, respected and, evolved over 10, 11 years. But I do think there was a sense of relief as well.
Okay.
It was a time to change. Of course, every business owner wants to build this business and then exit and make hundreds of millions of dollars. That business was not going to do that anyway. I try to take the positives. I think you have
Mm.
to in those sorts of situations because it's completely out of your control. There is no control that I had around that, in that the business would still be running today. I do believe that, if the COVID pandemic had not happened and how that came about. And so I do take the positives of what I learned from there. Also, the learning curve of going through how an exit in that way works was hugely stressful. But of course, you grow and you learn so much from it. So working with the deal makers and XYZ, making sure all legalities are right and all these sorts of things. So yeah, it was a mixed emotions.
Mm.
It was a mixed emotions. I look back now and I think, wow, we actually built something that was hugely, I'm proud of what we did. And we know we started in a recession as well,
Yeah.
2009. And so I try to take a lot of the positives and build that into the new company.
Yeah. And is there anything you would have ddone differently?
Hindsight's a wonderful thing. I've thought about this a lot.
Mm.
No one knows a pandemic is around the corner.
Yeah.
So to say that I would have more aggressively looked at buyers and stuff is just, I think it's a bit silly because you just don't know a pandemic's around the corner. I think it was just a freak time period. A lot of things happened, whether that be from insurance companies were not paying out. I'm not sure if you saw the press around that, for those small and medium-sized businesses, which then was overturned in the Supreme Court. By that time, it
Mm.
was too late for us. So I'm not quite sure. I think definitely, the new business is different in that we're a technology business, and so we are not tied to bricks and mortar businesses. I think that might be something I may really question again. A bricks and sort of mortar premises based business. Or I think, from now learning, putting caveats around that, definitely.
Mm. Like what?
Well, just ensuring that, the lease, the contract you have with the landlord has stipulations around some things like pandemics, which I'm sure people are now doing. Of
Mm.
course, prior to when we signed, that none of that was really there. So
Yeah.
just ensuring that the business itself is safeguarded from any certain external environmental things that could happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I live in Finland, and during the pandemic, I'm a CrossFitter.
Yeah,
The gyms were closed.
yeah,
The
yeah,
only thing that can help people, actually, they were closed. They closed them down.
yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. My CrossFit gym survived. They were the first confinement. There were a lot of support from the government,
Interesting. Yeah,
financially support, which they disbursed pretty quickly. I have to say.
yeah.
And unlike France, they
Hmm.
didn't ask the companies to reimburse it, because now
Yeah,
in France, what's happening, that I was told, the government supported small businesses during COVID, but
yeah.
now they ask the companies to reimburse the
Same in the
money.
UK. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, a lot of small businesses are now affected by that, and they have to close the doors because they don't have the financial
Totally.
means.
Yeah, there was a wave. I'm actually thankful that we closed when we did rather than afterwards, because yeah, there was a second wave of, landlords being able to, take the rent that was owed to them. And I do not begrudge any of the landlords. They have their business as well. And
Mm.
so you also had this second wave of of companies then failing after the pandemic. I think that would have been a harder thing for me, of working tirelessly after the pandemic to try and get it up and running, but then also to not be able to do it through no fault yourself. Yeah, I think just the economies, especially in Europe, huge effect, and the government's got a massive learning curve from that.
But we as entrepreneurs have to deal with that.
Totally.
And that's not easy.
Yeah.
Moving forward to KLIQ.
Yeah.
What are the lessons you've taken from your previous experience to bulletproof your business?
So certainly looking at, because I had bootstrapped a business before, literally from personal investment in, I think if you've run a small lean company, and cash flow is super important, I've tried to instill that into the company here. We're a tech company, and the technology sector is, I don't think, as some people might disagree, but is not as frugal maybe as small gym on a street corner that really needs every penny. And so it's not about not spending money where money is needed to be spent, but we focus massively on budgeting every segment of the business and ensuring that we make smart decisions, quick decisions, but they're smart decisions, and there is a return on that. And I think that's what's helped us continue to stay alive, and then got us to a point where we could grow to now be able to raise the money we have.
Anything else?
Structures and systems, for sure. I do believe in that. Even having just 6 or 7 members in your team, and some of them even could be part-time or fractional, systems are super important. So making sure that processes are put in place and thought about, and then are then actually in the diary, if it might be reporting or ways of doing things, are systemized, because it can be very, very easy to have 1,000 plates spinning, especially as a founder. And so anything that I guess happens and is not positive for the business, I will automatically look at chatting with the team about how can we systemize this in a better way, to ensure that we can make it just more efficient. So efficiency, I guess, throughout.
It's a great way, systems and processes, to avoid bottlenecks.
Yeah.
Because this show is about bottlenecks at the end of the day. Are there any bottlenecks you're facing right now?
Really good question. We have bottlenecks, but are tied to the resources, I guess you would say. The team will say I'm quite impatient. I'd like to do things today. But because of the size of the business, obviously we only have a certain amount of resources. And so that is something that we need to map in and really then prioritize things in the best possible way. So I think the biggest bottleneck we have at the moment is we are a seed stage company. So that is to be understandable. And resources are the thing that we need to be conscious of to make sure that we get the best bang for our buck on each part of the technology.
Do you want to raise capitals?
We have raised capital, and we're now just closing our round, of which we will then put obviously a percentage of that to resources. But even at this stage, you've got to keep your eye on that, because even raising capital, that money goes quick. It can go real quick. So we've still got to balance the resources with the spend, I guess, is the way to think about it.
Yeah, and it's another difference with your previous business where you bootstrapped, but now you're going for fundings, external fundings.
Yeah. So bootstrapped as much as I could, self-funded it, and now have gone to raise, because it's the only sort of a way of doing that in the time frame.
I understand. But remember, the money can go very fast. But I'm sure you know that. Okay, so take all your experience as an entrepreneur and summarize it into one practical recommendation for other entrepreneurs, startup funders. What would it be?
I think have a focus on your own personal self-awareness
Ooh,
and ensure you know your strengths, and ensure that you are open to being curious, like staying curious to asking questions specifically on things you do not know an in-depth amount um, of information on, whether that be the technology build or directly to the customer base. I think having your self-awareness, taking that step back on that is super helpful. I think we talked about delegation and letting go. I definitely believe it is not a case of just getting to level whatever in the building and then letting go and delegating. It's about getting better people in certain roles, nurturing them on what your vision is and the mission and what you have found out on your way, and then letting them enhance on that and grow on that. And naturally, those team members will start to take ownership of things in that way. So I guess it's just having a finger on the pulse in the things that are going to move the business. I also think it's super important to focus on things that actually do move the needle.
mm,
And so I learned this many years ago from a business coach when I first started, is just, having meetings for then decisions and real decisions rather than just discussions.
yeah,
Because that's the only way you're going to learn, is actually taking action anyway. And so I try to sort of instill that as well into the team, or just empower them to be okay with making decisions and being okay with iterating if that isn't quite right.
yeah. This is great insight, and this is so important. And I'm glad we talk about that because this is at the core of tackling your bottlenecks.
Yeah.
To tackle the bottleneck, whatever it is, you first have to recognize it
Hmm.
and recognize that you are the problem, and
Yeah.
that requires self-awareness.
Hmm.
Yeah, and maybe then we go back to what you were when we were talking about strategic thinking. Do you
Yes.
include a part on self-awareness on strategic when you have your strategic thinking with your co-founders, or like where you exchange with each other?
Um, we don't. No, I mean, I'm a solo founder.
Yeah,
I'm very lucky in that the leadership team I have around me, the core team, founding team, let's call it,
yeah.
have that as well. I mean, we've spoke about it, and we have our check-ins that are not in the strategic thinking meeting, but more in our, like let's just talk about non-business stuff and just talk
Mm,
about us as a team. Um, and so we will talk about it then. And just, I guess, any entrepreneurs that are listening that are starting out, asking those questions to the team members, what can we do to make this even better for you to thrive? And it
yeah.
sounds sometimes a little bit
Mm,
cheesy, especially to Brits, but that's the core question. If you want your team members to really step up, you need to ask them, what is stopping you from doing that? And is there anything that
absolutely.
we can do?
Absolutely. I see that again with so many funders,
Mhm.
assumptions they're making. They imagine that, that their leadership team or their
Mhm.
team members indeed is can read their mind.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. I'm
no.
probably guilty of that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody is, and your team is guilty, of it too, because they also assume that you as a funder
Mhm.
will know how they feel, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't work like that. You definitely have to have those conversations, like you said, are so important. And if I can add one tip on this, never accept the first answer as the real answer.
Interesting.
Always go deeper. There's always,
Yeah,
like, if you go deeper and ask why, for instance, you always
yeah.
get into the real issue.
Yes, yes, totally agree.
All right. Cool. Thank you, Ben. That was awesome. One last question. How can
Yeah.
people contact you?
So you can find me on email, ben@joinclick.io. I'm on all the social channels. So LinkedIn, I guess, is the most prevalent for, business side of things. And, please do connect, Ben Camara, which is, just full name. And yeah, happy to connect with the whole community.
Excellent. Again, thank you very much, Ben, for your time today.
No, thank you, Lauren. Love the show, and thanks for having me on.
And thank you for listening. I hope you found the insights and tips Ben shared with us today helpful to tackle your own bottlenecks. Don't forget to tune in next time for more inspiring stories and expert advice. Until then, subscribe so you never miss any episode. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.